Took this photograph at a reenacting festival and of a spinner. When I took the photograph, I noticed that it seemed to be lining up with a lot of the Dynamic Symmetry grid, and I thought it'd make a good painting. Wanted to put it on 11 by 14. Over here, I've added a strip on so it would fit in with the 11 by 14, so I could put in my diagonals. And it seemed to be on the sinister diagonal, and you can see how a lot of this stuff seems to be lining up after I started drawing it on here. And so that's going to be the gamut for the painting. I took a 11 by 14 canvas board, colored it with burnt umber, and then I marked off the grid on it based on the photograph. You can't see the lines too well on here, so I used GIMP and changed this burnt umber over to a blue, and this way we can see the lines a whole lot better. So here's the lines, and they're marked off pretty much like the photograph was. This is the initial drawing added on here. You notice I've got the grid here, and drew it so that it would, like the edge of the hat hits here along the neckline, we're hitting the top of the spinning wheel, and then down here, there was a piece of paper down here, but I changed this over to where I was thinking I was going to do a rock. Later on turned into a rabbit. Kept this kind of vertical with this. This person back here in the background actually was more like right over here, but I shifted her a little bit to the left so that it would match up with this line right through here that's hitting the top of the spinning wheel, and kind of parallel with that with the end of the skirt there. The line across here hits the top of the back of the chair, hits this part of the fold in the chair, and then kind of goes through the heel of the foot. So there's a number of these lines that are along in here. Towards the end of this video, I'll have this side by side with the finished painting, and we'll take a little bit more of a look at how the grid worked out. You can see I've done stuff like, see this right here with this fence. It kind of aligns with this line through here. This right here is a reciprocal to the sinister. So the gamut here is going to be mainly the sinister line and the reciprocal to the sinister. So there's a lot of parallel sinister lines through here, and I've kind of shifted things around so that they match up with that more. But like I say, towards the end of the video here, I'll compare this with the finished painting. This is the initial blocking in of the colors, so you can kind of see things where things were. I've made this fence a little bit smaller back here, mainly so it kind of gives it a little more depth. I've noticed that the face right here was not going to show up real good, and it kind of hit this edge, so I thought I would add a tree in here to make it so there's more contrast. And in this part you can see where the tree was added in. Gives a nice profile for the face here to kind of bring it out, and that way I can have a large contrast here so that this becomes the main focal point. This back over here was getting to be a little bit too light of a color. Later on you'll see I kind of change it to a little bit darker blue. Started adding some more stuff in here, and started putting a little drapery here. Here's a doorway, and I've kind of added this in a little bit more back in here. Wanted this to be kind of a dull color, not really showing up too well. I've changed this over to a rabbit down here from the rock. I've also darkened this up a little bit darker blue, so it stands out a lot less. And I've added down here in the basket some balls of yarn instead of the cloth that was there originally. On this one I have changed the face a little bit here, dropped it down so it's a little bit larger. Didn't like it, it's a little bit too small, and added some hair in there, dropped these shoulders down so it looks a little bit more natural. This shows the final painting alongside the Dynamic Symmetry grid marked out. I'll have a few comments about what's been added to the final drawing in the last slide that we look at. Right now I want to take a look at this and show how the Dynamic Symmetry grid's being used for the design. What we see here is, for instance, this line right here is coming along and giving us the angle of the hat, which is shown up right in here. You notice that there is a line that comes along, hits the edge of this spinning wheel, and then comes up and hits the top of this spinner, or this other reenactor in the background. Over in here you'll notice that the reenactor in the background here, from the original photograph, she was actually shifted over a little bit to this direction, but I shifted her back this way so that it would line up with this. So we also notice there's a little fold right here that we catch, and catch right here where this point matches up, and then up through here. The little rabbit that comes through here, this line comes up, hits the top of the spinning wheel, goes through her shoulders and the hat. We still have that coming up through here. There's the rabbit, come up and hit this, and then goes right into her face. So it kind of points up and through there. You also notice there's a little bit of darkness that's added into here that kind of follows that line a little bit as well. The basket comes up through here, hits the crease of her hand across the bottom of her chin, hits the top of her hat. So over here we have that same kind of angle coming up in here. This is actually a reciprocal angle to the sinister angle. So here's a sinister angle, and this is coming through and hitting him at right angles. So our gamut is hitting this at right angles. Notice I made it so at the top of this chair hits the top of her head and comes up from the bottom of the road here. So we're coming up through here, hitting this, hitting the top of that, and on up. I believe I also made this so that it kind of coincided with this branch right in here. These fence, where they're going sideways like this, these little X's for the fence, they have been lined up with this grid so that they are in sync with that as well. So there's a lot of stuff in here. Foot comes up here, hits the knuckle of her hand, and I guess I missed it up in here. I think I was trying to hit this point right back in here. So our foot's coming up and hitting the hand. So there's all kinds of stuff that we're seeing with the grid, and if you look at this a little closer, you'll see some of the other items that kind of have shifted them around a little bit so that they match up with the angles here. So we go in with the gamut. But the main thing to take a look at is when you look at the final drawing, you kind of can sense that, you can feel it when you're looking at it, but you can't exactly see it unless you start taking out a ruler and lining it up. This is the final painting. Some of the things that have been added, the shadow down here has been darkened up, and this shadow's been darkened up, and this has been added. There are some of these little white spots you'll see in the final painting, and some of the darkened areas in here. So what happens is there's a little bit of a kind of a zigzag through here that goes through and kind of takes you on through, so your eyes will kind of be falling through there. There's also another one that comes through, hits this rabbit and comes up here. It's kind of a triangle thing. I've added the light paint on the hat here so that you can see the sunlight seems to be coming this direction. This really brightened this up a lot. The glasses are pretty bright in there anyway, but that way you can kind of tell where the focal point, or the main focal point, is going to be. All in all, you can really get the sense of the dynamic symmetry design of this, but you don't exactly see it, like I was saying before, unless you actually put a ruler on there and line things up. So I hope you've enjoyed going through this with me, and I may try to keep track of some of my other paintings as I progress with dynamic symmetry, and also learn more about painting, and hope that you're able to apply some of the dynamic symmetry to your work as well.